everyone. I am Terry Lewis, Curriculum and Instruction Specialist at IU13 in the Teaching and Learning team. And this session is going to be about planning for intermediate ELA instruction, regardless of the mode. So there's this big question, how will we be teaching in the fall? So regardless of whatever that answer is, I think that some of these conversations will be helpful for you. So our objectives for today are to explore planning for ELA instruction in any learning environment. We're going to talk about the 5 E's in lesson design and consider applying these 5 E's to a live or virtual word study and comprehension lesson. So I'm going to ask you first if you could join this Schoology course. Here is the course code. I'll give you a few minutes to do that. Is there anyone in the group that does not have a Schoology account already? Okay, good. Then you should have no trouble just going to join a course. And if you could just give me a thumbs up with the reaction button or type in the chat box when you've successfully joined the course, please. So was everyone able to successfully join the course?
I'm still working on it. This is Kristen.
Thank you. Thanks, Jennifer. Okay, so I'm going to go into the course here, and you should be able to still see the course code just in case you need that still. So here's the course code. Does anyone still need that? So Sandy and Kristen, you okay?
I'm in. I have the. Do I? Okay.
When you,
I think I'm in.
okay, so when you first,
Yes, that's the screen I have, the one back there.
perfect, okay, all right. Sandy, are you okay? You are muted, so if you could either unmute or type in the chat.
I have put the course code in. Now I'm just trying to find where it is on my computer
Okay,
on my Schoology
okay. So if you
page.
click on courses and then my courses,
Yeah.
and then you should see ELA instruction in a remote learning environment on your list.
And it is not there.
Okay, well, maybe you should try to put the code in again.
Yeah, I'll try it. If you want to continue with the course, you know,
Okay.
don't.
I'll put the link or the code in the chat box.
Thank you.
Okay. So for those of you that are in the course, we're going to take a look at a word study sample lesson. So let me just go back to my slides for just a minute. Before we do that, I want to briefly talk about the 5 E's. So if you go back to the course where you were in the session introduction, if you click on the 5E jigsaw, and I'll put each of these links in the chat as well, just in case you can't get to it here. So I'm going to ask each of you to read about a different E in this document, this quick article. It's just a paragraph for each one. And then as you do that, I want you to think about your E, and then you're going to use this Jamboard. So let's do one thing at a time. So this is the article. Okay. So I'm going to ask you just to scroll down to where it says the model explained, and you see engage, explore, explain, elaborate, and evaluate. So it's just a paragraph for each one. So first I'm going to share that link in the chat, and it's also in the Schoology course. Okay, it's in the chat now. And then I'm going to ask each of you to be in charge of one of the E's. And you're going to complete this Jamboard. So you're going to go to your frame. So Sandy, if you would read about engage.
Okay.
Jennifer, if you would read about explore. And Kristen, if you would read about explain. And then I'll talk to the last two.
Okay.
But think about just what it is based on what you've read. And you could just click on the sticky note right here. And you can type whatever. Click save. Cancel, and then you could move the sticky note to the box. And then what does it look like means you've been teaching effectively for many years, right? So what has that looked like in your instruction? What did it mean to engage students? So in a regular environment, what did that look like? And then as we go through today, we'll talk about how it could look maybe a little different based on the new situation, okay? So does anyone have any questions about what you're being asked to do? And I'm also going to put the link to the Jamboard in the chat as well. Okay. Does anyone have any questions? And I'm going to add the Schoology access code again. And let's just take another minute or so to finish. If you don't finish, that's okay.
Hmm.
All right, so let's just take a minute or two to share, and then I'll summarize for those who weren't able to participate. So Sandy, would you mind sharing what you read about in the engage component of the 5 E's?
Yes, in engagement, they discussed that usually you're activating prior knowledge that students have, but also make sure that you're connecting the prior knowledge to what the coming topic is. Often you ask a question or do something in order to find out what their prior knowledge would be and what your starting point would be as well.
Great, thank you. And how might you have done that in the past?
Sometimes we do a KWL chart. I might do a group discussion. I might ask a question on whiteboards and everyone would write their answer there. Then I would know I had 100% participation and everyone's attention as we're getting the lesson started.
Great, thank you. Thanks for sharing. So again, you know, this is not new. You've been engaging students for many years, right? So I think we're just going to be thinking about it in another, with another lens today. Thank you. All right, how about explore, Jennifer?
Yep. So the explore part, it basically talked about how students explore new concepts through concrete learning experiences. So it's basically learning in a hands-on way, just using manipulatives and any kinds of things like that. The paragraph talked about how, you know, students might go through the scientific method, but of course that's for secondary students and communicating with peers. But I thought about my own experiences just using as many manipulatives as possible. So I gave different examples like magnetic letters and word sorts and letter tiles and different things like that, since I am a reading specialist. So I've been basically working with primary kids in a 1st and 2nd grade. But that's what we've been using, and it helps the kids explore and manipulate to make sense of what's been taught.
Awesome, thank you very much. So in the explain phase, Kristen had to go, but the explain phase is obviously that's that part of that direct instruction, right, for from the teacher. Well, you know, that modeling and guided practice, etc. That either the students are explaining what they've learned in the explore phase, and or the teacher is explaining a new concept or a new idea. So we know what that looks like. That's that direct instruction, right? So that's probably the part that we're most comfortable with. And how about elaborate? Jess?
Yeah, so this is when students are given the space to apply what they have learned. So in an ELA classroom, it might be that they've learned about a specific skill or how to do a specific skill. And this would be when they are trying it on an independent text.
Great. And then what have you done in the past for this E?
I'm not sure what you mean.
I'm sorry. So you weren't there for the original direction. So thinking about what you've done, you know, in a regular learning environment that we've been used to for many years. So in that phase of elaborate, what what might that look like in a classroom? I see you have presentations or investigations on your chart. So these are things that you've done in the past in a face-to-face environment, right? Yep. Okay, great. Awesome. Thanks. So finally, I guess I forgot the last one. The last one was evaluate. And this is where we check for learning, right? So we ask students to reflect on their learning, or we provide some kind of formative assessment tool. So what that may have looked like in the past could have been a ticket out the door, you know, a survey, having the students talk to each other about what they learned, etc. Right? So the point of this is to think about what we've already known and done for many, many years, because good instruction is good instruction regardless of the environment, right? So we might be face-to-face, we might be virtual, we might be in a hybrid, but regardless, we always have used these 5 E's to some level. And now we just want to think about what that might look like in a different type of environment, if that's what we have to explore this year. So these are just a summary of what we just shared, right? So we have our engage, explore, explain, elaborate, and evaluate. And when we're thinking about the 5 E's in a remote or a hybrid learning environment, just some things to consider, right? As always, we want to consider our learning goals. What is it that we want our students to get from this lesson? Will the learning be taught synchronously or asynchronously, right? So if it is hybrid or remote, will we be face-to-face, quote unquote, with our students through Zoom or something, another tool like that? Or will the students be on their own and working at their own pace? And therefore, when we think about those questions, what tools are available? So do we have access to Zoom? Do we use Schoology? Do we use Seesaw? Do we use Google Classroom or other tools, just like we used Jamboard just a few minutes ago? So what tools are available, and which can you or your students already use? So we don't want to overly confuse them and throw a new tool at them every day. So what is it that they're already comfortable with? Or what can be used very quickly and is really easy to learn? Like, for example, Jamboard that we just used. If you weren't familiar with that, it was just another Google tool that's very easy for teachers or students to manipulate. What can students do independently, and with what will they need support? So if you are confident that they are independent and they could do certain activities independently or use certain tools independently, those are the ones that could be done asynchronously without any problems. Or will they need some direct instruction either about the topic or about the tool? And then we would want to choose maybe a synchronous option for that. And what could students do independently with appropriate scaffolding? So maybe they've not used the tool, but maybe we can provide directions for them to use the tool, or screenshots or steps, so that they're comfortable with whatever tools or content that we're asking them to explore. So let's think about the 5 E's in an explicit word study lesson first. So if we were working with intermediate students on syllable types, for example, or certain spelling patterns, we can think about the 5 E's in this way. You will notice that in this case, I switched explain and explore. Oftentimes when we're doing an explicit word study lesson or spelling lesson or word work lesson, we want to provide the direct instruction first and then have them explore, rather than having them explore first. So depending on your topic and your purpose, you could move these E's around a little bit. So you can see the components of a word study lesson are on the last column. So these are the exact types of activities you would be doing with students in any learning environment. So I'm just going to show you how I built this word study lesson in Schoology, which could be translated easily to Seesaw or Google Classroom or another platform, focusing on open syllables. Okay, so I'm going to go back to the Schoology course, and you can either just follow along with me on the screen, or you can look at the course yourself. That's up to you. So I'm going to go back to the home page of the course, and in this pink folder is the word study sample lesson. So again, I'm going to open it. In this also in this purple folder is the lesson plan that it was actually taken from West Virginia Phonics and modified for this virtual platform. So the first activity, and you can set this up as a course completion, so the students would have to do each activity in order, right? So this is just a way to engage your students, you know, getting them thinking, you know, a little social emotional conversation. What's the best thing that happened to you since yesterday? And then here is they click on this, they get to a answer garden that they can type in their response. So again, part of the engage phase, just getting them thinking and talking and sharing. Secondly, as part of the engage phase, we have a long and short vowel sound sort. So again, I'm focusing on open syllables in this activity, which means it's a long vowel sound and an open syllable. And I'd like them to be thinking about the difference between long vowels and short vowel sounds as a warm-up. So the directions are here. So today we'll learn about open syllables. Vowel sounds make their long sound and open syllables. To review, let's listen for long and short sounds. Click on the audio file below to listen to the name of each picture. Listen to the first syllable in each word, and the first syllable, do you hear a long or short vowel sound? Then click on my assignment and sort the words. If they have a long sound, drag it under a short sound, drag it under the short sound column, or a long sound under the long sound column. Here's the audio link, which is basically just me reading the words so they know what the words are. This is for them to listen. I'm sorry, what the pictures are. This is for them to listen for the sound, not read the words. But I want to make sure they know what the pictures are, right? So this is a lilac, and the first syllable, lie, is long. So they would drag this picture under long vowel. This is minus. Again, those words in the audio will tell them that this is minus. Again, that's a long sound. Okay. This was hilltop. The first syllable's hill, that's a short sound. So that would go over here. Okay, so they would go through and then they would submit this assignment back to me so I could see that they correctly sorted the sounds by long and short. So again, those are the two parts of the engage phase, just getting them thinking and starting to just consider the activity or the syllable type. So anyway, this next part is part of the explain phase. So this is going to be the direct instruction about reviewing syllable division rules. And I just created a short screencastify video of me explaining this. So I'll just play a few minutes or a few seconds of it here. We have already learned about closed and open syllables. Let's review. In a closed syllable, there's one vowel letter followed by a consonant spelling, and the vowel is usually short, like in cap, cob, and brick. In open syllables, there's one vowel letter at the end of a word or syllable, and the vowel is usually long, like me, go, and buy. When we're looking at long words and we want to divide them into syllables, first we want to find the vowels. We're going to count the number of consonants between the vowels. If there are two consonants, we'll split between the consonants. If there's only one consonant, try to split before the consonant first. Let's try a few. In this word, there are two vowels. There are two consonants between the vowels, so we will split between the consonants. And we have two closed syllables, fig and ment, figment. In this word, we have two vowels, but only one consonant in between. So we're going to try to split before the consonant first. Now we have an open syllable and a closed syllable. In the open syllable, the vowel. Okay, so you get that. So that's the direct instruction piece. And then as a second part of the direct instruction, we have an activity in which the students will be reading words and looking for open syllables. So the directions here explain that they should look at the syllables or look at the words and highlight any open syllables that they see following the rules. Okay. So, and as they highlight, they should read that open syllable. So my, Q, re, etc. Okay, so that's just another way for them to practice finding open syllables. So then we go into word reading. So here we're doing I do some modeling, then they have their turn and then their own turn. So it's I do, we do, you do, and reading words with open syllables. And then we have an open syllable word hunt. So this is the elaborate phase where they can go find words around their house or in books or cookbooks or menus or wherever, and make a collage of words they find with open syllables and take a picture of it and include it in here in the chat box. And then we have dictation. And again, here it's just me modeling and then an auto recording of me saying the other words that they should be writing, and then take a picture of their words and sentences and submit them. And then we have text reading. So again, they're gonna open the link, they're gonna highlight any words with open syllables, read the words out loud, then record themselves reading the story by clicking on the microphone. So there's the text. And then finally, for our evaluate phase, we have a reflection. Share what you learned today about reading and writing words with open syllables by clicking on the microphone and posting a video, or posting a video in the discussion forum. Watch and comment on at least 2 classmates. So basically I could have included like a flip grid in here, but if we want to keep things simple, we want to stick with the same platforms when we can. So this would be the same idea as a flip grid, and the students could respond to one another as well. So that's just going through a word study lesson. So I'm going to stop there for questions, comments, other ideas that you have about word study and virtual tools.
Terry, I noticed that several of your activities there were based on Google Docs and slides, like the matching
Yep.
that you had. So this is the technological part of it that I struggle with. So obviously you created those things and then just put it on your Schoology page so students could access it from there.
Yes. If you use Schoology, do you use Schoology currently?
Yes.
Okay. So if you add an assignment through Google, then
Yes.
if you connect it to your Google account, when the student clicks on that document, it will automatically make a blank copy for them, and then they can submit it without going back and finding it and labeling it and all that. So it's really helpful if you submit it right through Schoology through Google.
Okay.
It's not that hard. I know learning new things can be challenging, but
yes,
it's easy for the students once you set it up.
Yeah. I think that's when, in my district, I'm 6th grade, and that's middle school.
Okay.
In elementary, they use Seesaw, but in middle school, we use Schoology.
Yeah.
So we do know that there will be somewhat of a learning curve here as they get used to the new platform.
Correct. Yeah. It's pretty user-friendly, though. So any other questions or comments? All right, so now let's, well, we just did this, right? So just thinking about, hopefully as I was going through, you were thinking about what activities could work for your grade level, what scaffolding would your students or families need, what activities might you use in which environment. So remember, even if you use Schoology and you are face-to-face, there are many of these activities that can be done independently in centers, or if you use a rotational model for the independent station. So just because you're using Schoology doesn't mean the students have to do everything at home, right? And maybe you change some things as well. So when we think about comprehension, we would go through the same process. So we'd think about how would we engage students? How would we explain, elaborate, explore, extend, or evaluate? And I have a few ideas here, what we would have done in the past, right? And maybe how that might look in a virtual environment, right? So we think about, again, using some of the same tools we used on Schoology, right? For establishing purpose. Maybe they could use a Google form or a Google Jamboard or a Google slide, or you could be sharing something with them to think about previewing vocabulary, right? Or in the explain phase, modeling. So what might that look like? So thinking about that, if you are having a blended type of environment, or maybe you have an environment in which you have the opportunity to teach synchronously through Zoom, the explain phase would be hopefully where you'd want to use those tools like Zoom or a face-to-face if you're hybrid. So that's going to be your modeling. You might be modeling a strategy, a skill, or a graphic organizer, and providing some guided practice. So you really, if possible, you'd like to be with your students during this time, that you could see where they're struggling or where they're doing okay. So that would be important. So then in the elaborate phase, this would be when they would be working independently or applying what they've learned maybe to a new text. Or maybe after the guided practice, they're reading the rest of the text on their own, but you know, annotating or answering questions through either a virtual tool, or maybe they're just taking notes on their and highlighting on their paper copies, right? And then how would we explore or extend? So what would be some extension activities, and what might that look like in a virtual environment? And then again with evaluate, what would be some assessments we might use? How might we have students reflect on their learning? So again, things like Flipgrid or a group Google slide that they're creating together, or you know, any other Kahoots or any other tools that we may use already. How could we embed them and for what purpose? Okay. So I'm going to stop there for a minute. Does anyone have any ideas that they've used for comprehension lessons that they'd like to share? And again, on the Schoology site, there are some activities that could be done for this purpose as well. So in the same course, there's a comprehension lesson that I'm not going to take you through step by step, but you can certainly see some of the different activities that can be done either synchronously or asynchronously in relation to comprehension. So here we've included Ed Puzzle, graphic organizers, discussion boards, Padlets, slide decks. So if you want to take just a couple minutes to look through those activities in Schoology and think about these questions. What activities would work well for your grade level? What scaffolding would your students or families need? What activities might you use? In which environments? What might you change? So I'll just give you about 2 minutes. Maybe you can look through a couple of the activities. So do you have any questions or ideas about comprehension lessons in a hybrid or remote environment?
Not really. I feel that Schoology has several different tools that are useful. I'd never heard of La Luna here before, so I would like to spend some time with that.
Okay, great.
It's a great Pixar short. It's one of my favorites.
Mhm. So cute. Okay, so another
We
help.
use the La Luna to teach doing a TDA. So
Oh,
that short is really good for it.
Yeah, that's great.
and what grade level do you teach?
I teach 5th grade,
Okay.
but I think our reading specialist had found it and had done it with us. But I think she also did it with our 4th grade as well.
Mm-hmm.
But the short is good for that. I think
Yeah.
I think there's resources out there that spell it out for you, to be honest with you.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't create the TDA myself. It was from her.
But
Sure.
just some of these activities that are on Schoology already can help build to that, right? So they're looking for symbolism and those types of things, which could lead to a text-dependent analysis activity. So that's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
So one other resource I wanted to share with you that you may or may not be familiar with is Common Lit. So with Common Lit, yes, I think I have this tab open somewhere. Here we go. So in this is basically a huge library of resources that is free. Of course, there's a free version and a not free version, just like anything. But just with the free version, you can set up classes and you can assign text to students, and you can browse by so many different criteria. So there are books. You can go by genre, you can go by grade level, you could go by literary device, like if you're studying theme or mood, so there are particular texts that align with those things. Whatever the theme is, maybe you're looking for text on a similar theme. So you can also text or search by Lexile level. So I'm trying to get to the list. Okay, so here, then you can click on the grade level, the Lexile range. So say I wanted to do 5th grade, and I wanted to do, say, biographies. And then you can even go further by standard, etc. But then you could assign your students these texts. There's paired book pairings, which has fiction and nonfiction texts. Say I wanted to use this one. And within it, there's an annotation tool that students can annotate as they read, so they can highlight, they can click here and type, and then you would see all their annotations. You can set guiding questions. So they have to, like, they would only show, if you had this guiding questions thing set, it would only show this amount of text till it says question 1. And then when they get to that, they would have to answer a comprehension question correctly before seeing the next chunk of text. So it helps if students need to chunk and make meaning a little more slowly. And then there are some assessment questions at the end, which are pretty good. And some even have a discussion question at the end as well. So more open-ended. So again, you can assign this for your students. It can be read aloud to them. It can be translated into other languages. So it's a really great tool, and you can, of course, connect this to Schoology or Google Classroom or whatever that you're using. You can link the activities here to your classroom management system. So you can do lots with it. So I just wanted to share that if you were not already familiar with that very helpful tool.
With that discussion, is that just discussion between you and the student, or does when the kids post something, do all students reading the text get to see the discussion?
That's a great question. I think it's just between you would see what their response was. But that's a great idea, is that you could take this question and put it into Schoology or your other management system and have an open discussion forum that they could use. That would be great.
Hmm.
So let's just have a quick conversation about how might you use some of these activities, either in a face-to-face environment, a virtual environment, or a hybrid learning environment. Or what other things have you used? I'd love to learn from you as well.
The teachers in my building used Common Lit a lot during the shutdown in the spring because it was an easy way to get a piece of text, and also did a lot of the, I guess, the work really for them. It was already, you know, embedded in there, and the questions. It's a great resource, and it's one thing that's nice about Common Lit is that it's continuing to grow, and it's continuing to grow with input from teachers. So it's a lot of really good material. We also have a Spanish immersion program at Township, so it was nice that there's Spanish language text that can be pulled in and used as well. Our teachers used Flipgrid a lot as a discussion response tool. We weren't synchronous. We were working asynchronously in the spring. This year we're going to be working well, every kind of way you can imagine, really. We'll have you know, hybrid students, and then also students that are face-to-face at the same time. So it'll be a good tool to keep everybody managed and organized. Schoology is a good tool to keep everybody managed and organized in one place. And then connecting and having discussions via Zoom or via Flipgrid can happen with both the students that are there and the ones that are at home as well.
Great, yeah, awesome.
Our district uses News ELA, which is sort of the nonfiction version of Common Lit, from what I can see.
Yep.
And in a lot of the annotations, the questions, the possibilities that you can use with it as well.
Wonderful. And if you need some fictional text, you can jump into Common Lit for free. So
Right,
yeah,
right.
Yeah, great.
Sandy, is that a paid version, the nonfiction that you were talking about?
For the News ELA,
Yes.
we started out with the free version, but then have changed to the.
Okay, so there is a free version to start with.
I believe there is, and I think the paid version is called Pro.
Okay.
Yes, there is a free version. I'm not sure the limitations of it though for News ELA.
I'm trying to remember that too.
Say that it's I think it's one a month, one article a month, if I'm remembering correctly.
Okay.
We used it probably 4 years ago, so it easily could have changed. The free version could easily have changed since then. But the nice thing about it is that I think there's 5 new articles a day. There's so many choices. It can relate to so many classes and topics. I found it very useful.
Wonderful.
Did anybody use ReadWorks this past year or in the past?
I've used it as reference material. I've used some of the articles in there and then made TDAs from them. I like that they're not super long, but you can get such a wide variety of articles that I found them very helpful as well. Okay,
because I know I've been exploring that site, and they have something called an article a day, which is kind of like a 10-minute type of kind of, you know, start your class with it. It looked interesting. It was like something I'm going to try, but I just didn't know if anybody had any experience with it.
I've not used it in that way.
It's free, so that's why.
Yeah, understood. Free's good.
Free is good, but it looked like something short to kind of get them started.
Yes.
I teach ELA to a couple different classes. We switch. So it's something they can start with because I'm physically going to have to move. So, they can get started as I'm transitioning from room to room. So it seems like something that might work to they can start on their own type of thing.
Right. Good idea.
Great idea.
I also liked some of the Google tools that you use there, Terry. Ones that I was not familiar with that I think I need to explore as well.
Great.
Has anybody found any good sites to get books? I know Epic is one. I'm just trying to figure out like guided reading type of books to get a lot of kids on the same one instead of physically handing out books.
Yes, in our district, we're purchasing Raz Kids for this upcoming year. And it was something that we kind of just explored in our district because we were asynchronous through the end of last year, but it is something that our school district has purchased for K through 4 for the upcoming year.
Okay.
But it's all leveled books, leveled reading. You can assign it through any type of platform. Just because our guided reading books are going to be, our handheld ones are going to be limited this year. So that was the platform that was the site or resource that our district decided to use, Raz Kids.
I had before I'm in 5th grade now, and I just moved there 2 years ago. Well, this is my 2nd year, I think, but I was in 1st grade for about 12 years. So that's what I used when I was in 1st grade. And I think that there is a version of Raz Kids for like the upper grades past 4th grade. I forget what it's called. I didn't know if anybody had any experience with it, with like chapter type books and things like that, or longer text or something like that.
I don't either.
I know that the library system, the Sora and Overdrive library system, has compiled a list of books that have unlimited copies for checking those books out.
Oh,
that we've used at Township quite a bit.
I didn't realize they were unlimited copies. I know I have kids that check them out on Overdrive all the time, but I thought once it's out, no one else could have it. But that's good to know. Thank you.
Titles are like that. It's a limited list of titles for the unlimited copies, and it mostly older text. But for our high school students, there were some of the classical pieces that they read on our canon were available for unlimited copies through that. I would check with your media specialist, and I think that they've sent out lists of which titles they are.
Okay, thank you.
All right, anything else you'd like to ask or share? All right, so I'm going to just ask you to reflect a minute in the chat box. If you could just choose one of these prompts and complete it in the chat box. So one could be, at first I thought blank, but now I know blank. I wonder blank, or the next step I will take is, based on your planning for teaching intermediate ELA this year. All right, so as you're finishing up with your responses, I just want to thank you for joining us this afternoon. I hope that you found something interesting that you might be able to use in your work this fall. I wish you all the best of luck and a great beginning to the school year.